to the orcas. It's very personal to me. This actually happened recently, like a week ago. We were in Saturna Island, British Columbia. I had heard the name Moby Doll, and I knew it was associated with captivity. And I kind of knew that maybe it was one of the first orcas captured, right? And so we did this screening on this island in British Columbia. And they took us to this lighthouse museum, this little building. The lighthouse used to be up here, but they dismantled the lighthouse and they left what's called the fog house and turned it into a museum. And it's 2 rooms. It's a very simple structure, you know. And you go in the back room and there's all these posters on the wall that explain the history of the island, but then there's something else. Tucked away in a corner is an orca skull. And I saw the placard, Moby Doll skull, and I started to read the materials that were there. What unfolds from this is one of the most tragic stories I think I've heard in my life. I mean, honestly. And I can actually put it into context. As I told you earlier, I'm a combat veteran, and not in the sense of I was in a combat zone, but I was a helicopter door gunner. We flew a lot of rescue missions and medevac missions. We picked up a lot of wounded and dead people. I've seen pretty nasty stuff. A lot of tragedy. This actually, on my scale, ranks up there. And here's why. Moby Doll in 1964, there was a sculptor. Well, actually, I'm not going to go to the next slide yet because I got to set this up. You know, it's hard because if you see the next slide, it doesn't have the impact. There was a sculptor for the Vancouver Aquarium that was tasked with creating a life-size orca for the aquarium. Not a life-size real orca, obviously, but you know, it's a sculpture that they could put there for people to see. And the best thought that he had in his eminent brilliance was that he needed a live orca to make this model from. Now, nobody had captured an orca before. Nobody had tried. There was no reason to, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. There was no monetary value in orcas. There was nothing anybody could do with them. This is where the paradigm shifts, is Moby. So what they decided to do to get his live model is set up a harpoon gun on the shoreline. This Moby here. They waited 2 months until a pod of resident orcas swam close enough for that harpoon gun to be fired. This is the sculptor himself firing the harpoon. It struck Moby just above the eye patch, embedded in him. The idea was not to capture him. The idea was to kill him. So this same sculptor hopped in a skiff, went out towards where Moby was thrashing about, and actually, this is more of a tragedy. Eyewitness accounts, and this is recounted in the PBS documentary that I watched on this, eyewitness accounts say that Moby looked dead. When he was hit with the harpoon, he kind of was slightly below the surface, not coming up to breathe, not moving. His family, now remember, orcas' pods are their family. And not in that they like each other sense, they're biologically related to each other. So his family swam underneath him and propped him up, pushed him up to breathe. And he finally gave a breath, and he started thrashing about. And that's when the guys on the shore realized that this was not going to be an easy kill. So they went out on a little boat and took high-powered rifles, and they shot him several times. And he didn't die. And they sent somebody to make a phone call back to the Vancouver Aquarium. And, hey, we have a great opportunity. They decided to live capture Moby. So the idea was, go ahead, since it's already conveniently there, take the cable with the harpoon embedded in this whale and tow him back to Vancouver from Saturna Island. It took 16 hours in a near squall, choppy waves. pulling the harpoon that's stuck in his head. While this was happening, they hastily erected, in the Burrard dry dock, they hastily erected a sea pen, and they put Moby in it. It would be 40 days before Moby would eat, because they had no clue what to feed him. Nobody had a clue what to do with La Orca. They threw horse meat in there to feed him. Ground beef, squid, things that Moby wouldn't even consider as food. Somebody, just by chance, and this is exactly how the account was put, by chance, threw a lingcod into the water, and Moby grabbed it and ate it. He was starving at that point. He was holding on to life. He had been through hell, and he was still there. The Vancouver Aquarium saw dollar signs. This is when this became this. They started charging people money to come see the live orca in the water. I can get to this in a second here, but what ended up happening after that, it defies logic, actually, in the simple sense that these were animals that could be seen and still can be seen readily, naturally in the wild. But there were more people out there that wanted to make money. So they started to round up orcas, northern and southern residents, mostly southern residents. And yeah, as you saw in the film, they took, in a 10-year period, they took more than 40 of the southern resident orcas into captivity. And they killed several of them in the process as well. And in fact, of the 40 that they took into captivity, only one remains alive. And her name is Lolita.